Hello and welcome to another edition of Radio Worldview.
That's crazy talk.
We are still answering a listener question from ages ago. It was actually a three-part question in our defense, and the second part that we were hoping to get to today, well, last week, and now we'll get to.
Hopefully the person who sent the question in has not graduated from high school and gone on to college, or college and gone on to be married, or is now not a grandmother.
We're doing the best we can. That's the important thing. And the question was, could you talk about biblical masculinity and biblical femininity? So today, that's what we're going to do. But of course, first and foremost, it's time for Roadkill Cafe.
Beat diddly deet.
Did I get it wrong?
Yeah.
Well, our producer just fills my mouth with glorious song when I open it like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Reminds me of a movie I saw where people went to heaven, and then when they opened their mouths, orchestras would come out. Yeah.
That's it.
That's
just like me.
Just what needs to happen. But we're talking about what goes into the mouth, not what comes out of the mouth.
Which is good food.
Good food. And one of the premier burger joints in the nation is in Castle Rock, Colorado. Yep. I tell people all over the country, I can take you to the best burger place there is, and I know immediately what they're thinking. They're thinking, Bill, I've had some really good burgers in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I said, you will doubt me, but when you come out of that restaurant, you will fall to your knees and beg me for forgiveness for doubting me.
You know, I'm qualifying everything you're saying. I'm with you 99% of the way.
Yeah.
You know, there's always
one. There's one place.
Yeah.
We can talk about. Go ahead and tell them.
No. It's a different.
Because you
thing.
got to keep it a secret because you don't want people to overwhelm it.
No, but I am going to say this, and this is going to be controversial, and I'm going to get in trouble. But let's just be honest. East of the Mississippi, nobody could make a hamburger for pretty much all the time. They considered Hardee's to be a legitimate burger option. And then Five Guys came along, and people in the East act like they discovered the hamburger through Five Guys.
Five Guys.
And
we now have hamburgers.
It's like Five Guys is fine, but we've been eating great burgers at In-N-Out. There's been great fast food in the West long before Five Guys.
Exactly.
And so that frustrates me. And so if you talk to anybody from the East, they definitely should fall down on their knees at Crave because, good grief, they've hardly ever had a good hamburger before. But you're right. Even people from the West, even people from LA should acknowledge that this is a phenomenal burger. And a lot of it is because they're so diverse in their burger offerings.
Eclectic.
I like it.
Eclectic in their toppings.
Yeah.
Okay. And the burger itself is excellent.
Yes.
Okay, the burger itself is excellent. It's Crave Burgers, Crave. Small little place. They tried to expand, but that didn't happen. So I think they're still down to this one place. But it's not just the burgers; it's what they put on the burgers,
or put it in like a donut, for example. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And my favorite for the longest time, they've taken it off the menu, was the Mexican chili relleno burger.
Yeah.
And it had, it was glorious.
I think it really did have stuffed chilies on it, right?
Yes.
Cheese stuffed chilies.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was good.
Right. But there's one called Love Stinks, and it's garlic.
It's garlic, onion, something else rancid too.
Yeah.
It's the smelliest burger.
I mean, you would not want to get on a plane the next day.
What's the cheese? What's the bad smelling cheese?
Well, I think maybe it's got pepper jack cheese on that one.
See, I thought it was more like a Gruyere or something like that.
Yeah, could be.
It's smelly. That is a smelly burger.
But I mean, there's the Colorado burger. It has lamb on it. Okay. There's the Three Pigs. Okay, which has pork, and when we're not saying, we're saying that it's on the burger. There's the burger, and all of this goes on top or in the burger.
So there's pork and bacon, right? Is that the Three Pigs?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And then there's the slopper,
Yeah.
Which you got to get off in it, as one of our faculty says. You have to eat it with a fork and a knife. But that's not the only thing that draws me to crave.
Okay, let me just say, they also discontinued my favorite burger, which was the deep fried burger. And if that sounds massively unhealthy, it should, but man, did it taste good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
and I mean, there's the one that is between two donuts. There's one that is between two grilled cheese.
Oh, that's good too.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
We have been there so often that that I got a free T-shirt for eating so many of their burgers. But it has been there for a few years, okay? But they also have excellent fries.
That's true.
Okay, truffle fries.
Yep.
Sweet potato fries. But the one thing that's very unique is that they have shakes.
Weird shakes, let's be honest. The shakes are a little freaky for me.
My favorite, my go-to, is the Velvet Elvis. Vanilla ice cream, hot fudge, bananas, peanut butter, and bacon. Now, when I say bacon, I'm not talking about bacon bits. I'm talking about strips of bacon. Oh, it's glorious.
They just dunk a couple strips of bacon in the shake, right, when they're done making it?
And it's named after, of course, Elvis, because he liked that.
Banana, peanut butter, bacon. That's disgusting.
And hot fudge. Hot fudge and vanilla ice cream.
So, if you're ever in Castle Rock, Colorado, which is just south of Denver, and basically is Denver now as Denver takes over the Front Range, stop in at Crave Burger and experience one of the best burgers you'll ever
If I leave now, I think I could make it for lunch.
I think you could.
Yes.
We are now going to turn our attention. Oh, that ends Roadkill Cafe. And now we're going to go on to biblical view of masculinity and femininity. And my starting place that I'm going to argue for, if you're going to let me talk first, is Ephesians 5:22 through 33, which is a difficult passage. It's the one that starts, "Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as unto the Lord." That's not the NIV version. You told me you had the NIV version pulled up. So the point that needs to be made about that particular passage, which, by the way, that's some of the best advice I ever got in my life. My wife and I asked an older Christian couple, "Do you have any advice for us before we get married?" And they both said, "Memorize Ephesians 5:22 through 33. And that was fantastic advice. And we did that and have been very glad that we did ever since. But the part of the rub of that whole passage is that there are two different commands, right? For husbands, they are commanded to love their wives. And then for wives, they are commanded to respect their husbands, which means, I guess, that women don't have to love their husbands, right? Not at all. What it means is that husbands value respect more and wives value love more. And I'm going to tell you what I think that means, and you and I can fight about it, but I've always said that there are people who have justice personalities and people who have mercy personalities. And the people who gravitate towards justice, who are most concerned with that, those people want to see everyone receive their due, right? If you go out and knock off a liquor store and I've got a justice personality, I want to see you in jail. You get what you deserve. Conversely, if you have a mercy personality, you want to see a person receive grace, right? Not get what they are due, but instead receive grace. So if I were a mercy personality, if I were a mercy personality, I would look at you knocking off a liquor store and think, well, he had a tough home life, right?
His mortgage is due, and he just got fired, and he just wrecked his car and no insurance. So let's cut him a little slack.
He's got excuses. Yeah. Born before the advent of fire, so it was very cold. Right, all those things that would cause him to misbehave. So, very broadly speaking, and this is a generalization, I think there are two types of people: people who err towards justice and people who err toward mercy. And it goes without saying, the Christian life should be the balance, right? That we should deeply desire mercy and deeply desire justice. But anyway, in the context of Ephesians 5:22 through 33, I'm suggesting then that women, biblical femininity, tends toward mercy, and that men tend toward justice. So when wives are told to respect their husbands, the idea is the husband likes justice, and if he believes that what he's done deserves respect, then the best thing you can do is give him respect. The wife is on the side of mercy, and if she believes that the best treatment is the merciful treatment, then that's expressed through love, right? That you love her unconditionally all the time. And of course, wives should love their husbands unconditionally. Of course, husbands should respect their wives. But I believe the drift of this passage is very clearly that men don't have as much problem rendering someone their due because we tend towards justice. Women don't have as much of a problem with unconditional love because they tend toward mercy.
Right, and they tend to be more nurturing because of raising their children.
That's what I'm getting at,
and men
right?
tend to be more aggressive in the sense that they want to conquer, and so they are out conquering and seeing this is right and this is wrong. So there is that natural tendency. Now, individuals vary, but generally that's the nature of men, that's the nature of women.
Yeah.
And because the burr under everybody's saddle is that second word. Wives, submit.
Yeah.
And submit, it goes against our nature, anybody's nature. It goes against my nature, okay? Because I want to be in control.
Sure.
And why do I want to be in control? Because of the fall.
Yeah.
Because of the stinking fall.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not the boss over me, okay? One of our friends, Andrew Heister, tall, 6'2", 4 maybe, he was watching his little nephew one time, and he told his nephew to do something. His nephew walked up to him and just said, "You're not the boss over me." I mean, that's the picture we get when we rebel against God.
Yeah.
But this submit goes against our nature because our chief sin is pride.
Yeah.
And especially when it says wives submit, I do think it goes back to Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, God says, "I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." Now, most people, when they read that, your desire will be for your husband, they think, oh, that's a romantic attachment or attraction. But I've heard Bible teachers say, no, that means that women will now want to be in the position of the man.
The role.
In the role of the man.
Yeah.
And then when it says he will rule over you, that causes natural tension. We're broken.
Yeah.
Our relationship with nature is broken. Our relationship with people's broken. Our relationship with our spouse is broken. And we're broken. So this whole thing about submit, we first have to submit to God.
Yes.
Because this makes no sense unless you start there.
Yeah.
You have to submit. And for somebody to tell you, submit.
Yeah, you don't like the sound of that.
Don't like the sound of that word.
And we should say it out loud. Earlier in Ephesians 5, we're called to submit one to another, right? So this is not just an issue of the wife submitting to the husband. There are times when the husband needs to submit to the wife as well. And as you say, all of us rebel against this idea of submission. We should also point out that in Genesis 3, that is part of the curse. That is part of the consequence of sin, right? We all read the first part of that passage and go, yeah, pain in childbirth, that's a curse, right? But then the husband ruling over you doesn't read quite as much like a curse, but it's still one of the bad consequences of the fall in the sense that there will be this war for rule
Yes.
or authority.
Who's going
right?
to be in charge when
Yeah.
it comes to a marriage relationship? In making decisions, there may be consultation and discussion and back and forth, but eventually it falls to one person to make a decision.
That's what I always say. I always say this passage is about the tiebreaker. Right?
Yeah.
It's not saying the husband always gets to pick the restaurant you have dinner at. The husband always gets to decide where you live. What it's saying is when these two who have become one in their union go to God in prayer and ask Him for His will and get two different answers and can't figure out what exactly are we supposed to be doing here, there has to be a tiebreaker. There has to be someone who decides. And the role that the husband has, for better or worse, is to be that tiebreaker. And woe to the relationship if he hasn't carried it to God in prayer, right? If he takes that responsibility lightly and says, well, I just decide we're going to do it this way.
Right.
That's not submission, like you're talking about, right? Instead, we need to all be submitted to God, as you say, and then ultimately there's this question of the tiebreaker. It's never about the husband shaking his fist and saying, I'm in charge. It's ideally about two people going before God, occasionally getting different answers, and somebody having to break the tie when it's all said and done.
And what has really colored this passage in our culture is it started back in the 60s with the feminist movement. Okay, it was the idea, and they would use this passage,
Sure,
and turn it, because they would say, I'm equal with you. Why do I have to submit? And they would bring up instances where professing Christians would use this passage to put down women.
Definitely.
They would
happened.
use it. Yeah, and it happened because just as people have taken Scripture and justified slavery, okay, men take this passage and they use it to be domineering, to be controlling.
Which, by the way, is a sign of weakness, right?
Yes.
I mean, we talk about this all the time. Meekness is controlled strength.
Right.
And being meek is that willingness to submit, that willingness to surrender, that willingness, not because you're weak, but because you're controlling your power and being willing to do that.
It is that image of a 12-year-old girl sitting on a stallion.
Yeah.
And the stallion letting her guide him with reins when he could do whatever he wanted to do.
Absolutely.
So we have seen the perversion, the distortion of passages over and over. So don't let this be the guiding principle that I'm going to ignore Christianity and I don't have to abide by this passage because it's been misused. Yeah, everybody can twist Scripture.
Yeah,
I can make Scripture say whatever I want it to.
Yeah, in your sin and willfulness.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So you've opened a door. I'm going to try this out on you, and this is brand new. I've never dumped this on you or really anybody before, but I do really think this is part of biblical masculinity as well. So push back against this, please, and tell me if you think it's full-on crazy talk. But I'm going to suggest that a part of biblical masculinity, this is a weird way to say it, is knowing what hills you should die on. And what I mean by that is we pick our battles. Yeah. If we're wise, we pick our battles, right? And, going back to the wife's tendency to mercy and to nurture, whenever anyone says anything bad about any of your kids, right? Your wife just wants to pulp that person, right? That person needs to go away, and you can't spend your life chasing down every person that's giving your kids a dirty look. You need to pick your battles, right? So I'm suggesting, and stay with me on this because this is tricky, but what I'm suggesting is then that a part of being the leader in the marriage is having that voice that says, this is not a hill that we're going to die on. I have the courage to die on a hill. I'm not disputing that someday that day may come, but this is not the hill that we're going to die on.
Right.
And here's the reason I think that grates so much with a lot of wives is that husbands tend to be lazy and we tend to be passive. Our default is kind of watching football on Sunday afternoon, right? That doesn't take much effort or thought or leadership or anything like that. Our tendency is just to, sit down on the couch and watch football. And if we ever manifest those tendencies, then it opens the door then to the wife saying, well, he doesn't want to put in the work to take care of this. You see what I'm saying?
It's framed, he does not care.
Yeah, he doesn't care enough.
Which
right?
is another way of saying he doesn't love me.
Right. And so, and that's what I'm trying to suggest with all of this kind of new language is that it's easy because I am lazy and I am passive sometimes. So it's easy for Linda to look at me and go, well, he doesn't really want to fight for this because he's just too lazy or passive. And probably sometimes that's the case. But sometimes it's because I've decided that's not the hill that we're dying on. There's going to be a different hill that's going to matter a great deal more. And I think we're talking about in the ideal right now, the ideal biblical masculinity. That's that quiet leadership that says, I'm not going to go track down the president of the PTA because she might have said something bad about little Jimmy. I'm just not going to do that. It's not that big of a deal. But this thing matters.
Right.
And it matters so much that you and I together are going to go to war on this thing, and we're going to make sure this thing is taken care of. So I don't know quite how to express this. I have been thinking about this a lot, and I'm trying to say it as best I can, which is, again, this idea that to be masculine is, number one, to have the vision to see what really matters all the time, to hold that in view, to see the big picture and go, that's the thing. And then number two, in service of that, to be willing to die for that thing, but to not be willing to die and scrap and cry and moan over everything else that comes along. And I think it goes contrary to the more merciful disposition that would never like little Jimmy to ever feel bad about himself. Mm-hmm. But it saves resources. It keeps the main thing, and it does allow you to go to war then when you need to. And
it also trains children. If you're constantly protecting your child, then there's no challenge in growing up, and so you're hamstringing your child.
Yeah.
If you're constantly, defending your child, then there's a problem there as well.
Okay, so in my language, then right. So that keeping the big thing in view is, I want my child to be a fully formed adult who is following Jesus because their faith belongs to them, right? The big picture is, how do I want little Jimmy to turn out? And as you said, and in my terms, it's like, that's not because I want little Jimmy to turn out this way, mature, capable of taking care of himself, able to withstand criticism. Because I want him to turn out this way, then I'm not going to battle over this and battle over that and all these other ways that I need to protect him.
But I will battle. I will defend. I will. And the word I've heard recently that's becoming very popular in response to the feminization of the culture, the feminization of the church, is the word that men should exercise their agency. Okay, that we are an agent of the Creator.
Yeah.
That we have
submission again.
Yes, we have a duty to follow what He's called us to do.
Yeah.
And so we should step into our agency. And I kind of like that, because then it gives us this idea, then what is it that I am called to do?
Yeah.
You know?
I guess the word I would like is ambassador, because I think we're on the same page on that, right? It's the idea that we're acting in accord with our leader.
But agency has more virility to it, more aggressiveness, because an ambassador is just one who represents the country from which he
Oh, I see.
But
there's
the
more
idea,
action involved.
there's
in
more
agency.
action involved with agency. It's more militant in that sense, and I think that has been lacking in the culture because of sin. Everything has been turned upside down, and the radical feminist movement has emasculated the calling of men.
Yeah.
By saying we're all equal, you can't treat us any differently. I go back to your college experience. Yeah.
The one where the biology professor stood up in class and said, he cited all these weird cases and then said, so as you can see, there's no physical difference between men and women. Is that the class?
Yes.
Oh, and then the next day, the sociology prof stood up and said, if we lived in a perfectly just society, women would hold 50% of all jobs across all career paths. And one of my buddies said, even in the NFL? And this professor said, yes, even in the NFL, right?
Yeah. Now that was some time ago.
Yeah.
But are we
say
not
that
seeing
again.
that come to fruition now?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah,
Because the absurdity of that you can choose your identity
yeah.
goes contrary to everything that Scripture says here.
Right. What we're suggesting when we're saying there's biblical masculinity and biblical femininity is that God created two sexes. He has a plan for what it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman. And as part of being an agent, not a free agent.
Not a free
someone-
agent. You're an agent in the sense of being an ambassador, but being more than just a representative. You have a duty to defend. You have a duty to act, not just to say, well, here's, I'm here on behalf of.
So maybe we should say there's male agents and female agents.
There
right?
are. There's an agency that women step into. There's an agency that men step into, and we have taken that away, and as a result, men and women do not know what they're called to do because we've abandoned Scripture and let the culture define masculinity, let the culture define femininity, and now we're confused.
Yeah.
We being Christians, because the church has avoided passages like this because it's a little too controversial.
Yeah.
It steps on toes.
No, that's definitely true. So I'm still hooked on my theory, so I want you to push back a little bit more. Would you grant that men do tend to be passive and lazy?
I agree,
flesh?
yes. Especially in the area of family.
And
here's where I think they because they let the wife, the mother, discipline for the most part of the day. Usually men are gone, they're out of the house. And so the wife is got the reins, of raising children, of teaching children. And that's not necessarily bad, but when the husband comes home, the wife says, "You won't believe what little Johnny did," and Dad, I'm gonna fix this. Smack, okay. Now I'm gonna fix this. You're timed out. I'm gonna fix this, and then he goes and lies on the couch.
Yeah.
Lays down on the couch.
Yeah.
So, and he goes,
yeah, job done.
Job done. But that's not what the wife wants.
And that, by the way, thank you for saying that too, because for a long time in our culture in America, we viewed education as primarily the female's job, right? And certainly she has a role in education, but it's the passivity of the man again, right? That's like, you take care of all the education. Maybe I'll show up when it's college time or whatever, or show them how to work on a car or something like that. But all the rest of the education is yours. And that passivity, that failure to understand your role in God's creation, then frustrates the wife, right?
Yes.
She's like, I'm doing all the heavy lifting here.
I'll give you a classic example, okay? Because we're on the road 2 months out of the summer. early on with Worldview Academy, families would travel together. But as families aged, as children aged, there were limitations. And in my case, there were a few years where I was on the road for 2 months, and my wife and the kids were home because there were other activities, there were other jobs, there were other duties, and it didn't permit us to do that. It was kind of like being deployed.
Yeah, really.
It was. But when I'd come home, I'd walk in the house, and it was almost, you could almost say, okay, hi, I'm back, let me have the reins.
Yeah.
And her response would be,
I've had the reins for 2 months
I've
now.
had the reins for 2 months. Why should I give them back to you?
Yeah.
And it was a subtle tension, but we'd always have to work through that.
Yeah.
Because habits had been formed, leadership habits had been formed.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm coming in and saying, okay, I'm back, let me have back the reins. And so there was, and that's why that Genesis 3 passage always kind of, punches me in the face.
Yeah.
Because, we have a broken relationship, married 47 years, but broken relationships always create tension.
Yeah.
And it's the sin factor, and it's we are either as men passive at home, or we're because we've been aggressive all day long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want to relax.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. I'm trying to dance around a little bit the idea that men are a little bit more aggressive in general than women. And I'm not suggesting that the aggressiveness of the male is necessarily like the masculine quality, which is why, again, I want to say knowing what hills you want to die on, right? Like if you're showing your aggression all the time and you're beating up 12-year-old kids on the football field just to show that you can win again, I don't think that's masculine. I think that's the opposite of masculine. But we do have men, Christian men, have this well that we can draw on when we need to draw from that well. And the ungoverned man is sort of just running around asserting himself all over the place. And the governed man, and that's why I keep coming back to knowing what hill you're going to die on, right? Picking your battles. The governed man is able to harness that and say, not now, not on this field with 12-year-olds, not here, not now, now.
Right.
Now we're going to war.
I'm reminded of a John Wayne film that you saw. You weren't as big a fan of it as I.
I don't do well with John Wayne, but that's another day.
The Quiet Man.
Yeah.
And he, throughout the film, he's an American who goes back to Ireland, to his roots. Turns out he's been
pronounced roots.
Roots, yes.
Yeah.
And he's come out of the boxing ring. So you find this out throughout the movie. But he's goaded, he's pushed, and he does not respond until the very point where he should.
Yep.
And when he does, the entire village rallies around him.
Oh, that's good.
And so that's what you're talking
I'm glad you
about.
thought of that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And it goes back to meekness again. Proper understanding of meekness, which is controlled strength. And yes, I do think masculinity has a component of aggressiveness or aggression, but it's very much governed. It's like it's your image of the girl on the horse, right? The strength in the horse is controlled. He doesn't just turn himself loose whenever he needs to. Yeah.
And
so you're buying all this?
Yes.
You're not upset about anything?
No, I'm not, because I think you're spot on about the passivity of men when it comes to family. And
that's a good qualifier.
And that's why I'm saying that we need to step into our agency as leaders. We are to love our family. Now, that's just not, I love you, hugs and kisses. It is to to take the time to pour into them, to train them, to teach them, to guide the family, to be deliberate, to step into your agency. And that's why I like that word. I'm reminded of Francis Schaeffer. He talked about that the character of God is that we tend to fall on one side, but God is holy, He's just, and He's merciful. He's loving.
Perfectly merciful, perfectly
Yes.
just.
We tend to emphasize one or the other of those.
I fall off on the justice side.
I fall on the justice side.
Yeah.
My wife fell off on the mercy side. And so he said, either one of the, whenever you do that, it's a distortion of the character of our God. It's a distortion. And we cannot be perfectly just and perfectly loving. We can approach it, but not on our own power.
Yeah, there's no way.
It is only by the power of the Holy Spirit working through us that we can even come close to reflecting that because of our sin nature.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that again about the family, right? In the traditional model, the husband goes off to the office, the wife stays at home, she works very hard with the children all day. And it's not that the husband doesn't know that that's hard work. He does know it's hard work, and he has been working hard at the office and doesn't want any more hard work on his plate coming home, right? But the proper response is to come home and lead, right?
Yes.
And yet...
And that's love.
Yeah.
To say, I'm coming alongside you.
Yeah.
I know you've had a hard day.
You've had your hands full all day long.
Let me take some of that.
Yep.
And perhaps it's more, because of our culture, it's easier to picture this in an agrarian society where they were working on a farm.
That's a good point.
Okay?
Yeah.
But because they were all connected, they saw what each did.
Oh, you sound like Wendell Berry right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because Wendell Berry, he would kind of idealize that and say, well, look, the wife is working alongside the husband, the children are working alongside the parents, and there's not this...
There's a family economy.
Right, there's not this specific division of labor that we're...
there's not a splintering of the family economy that we...
Yeah, oh, you sound like Wendell Berry. Wow.
He got it from me.
Okay, we just had a good point made to us by our producer, August Huckabee. I said something very quickly along the lines of, you choose your battle, you find the hill that you're going to die on, and then you tell your wife, hey, let's go to war on this. And what he heard was me suggesting this is where you and your wife have a knockdown, drag-out battle, and that was not what I was saying.
No, it was
together.
Yeah, together.
I was saying, here you and I go together to go to war on this thing, right? I don't care that the head of the PTA may have said something bad about little Jimmy to a friend somewhere at McDonald's, but this thing that you've identified, this thing matters. This is the hill we're going to die on. And so you and me together, my wife and I together, let's go fight this fight. Doesn't mean that the husband doesn't take the lead in the battle. Doesn't mean that masculinity is more aggressive at that moment than femininity. Certainly it is. But your wife is going to, I think, be glad to be included in that moment of now's the time we draw the line.
Yeah, there's a sense that generally that women want security.
Yeah.
Men want challenges
and risk.
Yeah. And so they want to know that their husband is willing to stand in the gap.
Yes,
and say,
that's
and
what I'm
if
saying.
the husband doesn't, just as nature abhors a vacuum, so do relationships, and so the wife will tend to step in.
Yeah.
And vice versa. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that we have to work in tandem.
Right.
We're yoked together.
Yeah.
And you don't, I mean, we've got to have this goal in mind. In military terms, there's something called a commander's intent. Now, the commander's intent is, okay, I want that hill taken. Okay? But that doesn't mean that you have to do it this way. There are all kinds of strategies. You may run into an obstacle, a pillbox over here with a machine gun, and you have to work your way around. when you wanted to go straight up. That was the easiest path, the best path rather. And so the commander's intent, we always fulfill the commander's intent, but we decide what is the best path to go along to get to that goal. And that falls on the husband.
Yeah.
That falls on the husband to say, we as a family, we're gonna serve God. As for me and my house, we're gonna serve the Lord. But each family's different. Each circumstance is different. How do you serve? Where is the hill that we choose to conquer or die on?
Yeah, yeah, and that's good. Okay, so you understood me. I just want to make sure our audience is not mishearing me on that. I'm not talking about all the hills that you die on or the hills or the fights that you have with your wife. I'm saying that when you identify that hill that you are going to die on, you and your wife together are then united in that. So then the follow-up question from our producer is, okay, but what about those times when you decide it is a hill to die on and the wife has not reach that same conclusion, right? And I think that's a good question to ask as well. In the examples I was using, defending your children, believe me, my wife is going to be ready to fight that battle whenever and wherever. So there was never a clash in that regard. But then, there are other instances where you might think it's crucial and your wife might not yet see how it's crucial. This reminds me of my favorite movie of all time, The Winslow Boy. And The Winslow Boy is this true story about a boy who's accused of stealing and kicked out of his school, and his father asks the boy, did you steal? And the boy says no. And so the father goes to war against this school. And the war costs his family too. And there's a moment in the movie where he realizes, yeah, I sacrificed myself because I was willing to sacrifice myself. But I didn't ask my wife if she was willing to sacrifice herself. And now I've dragged her into this. And we never had that conversation. It's a great, really poignant moment in the movie. You definitely should watch the movie, The Winslow Boy. But that's the other question, right? Like, I don't think you should ever, in the ideal sense of biblical masculinity, I don't ever think you should drag your wife kicking and screaming into battle. I think there should be a lot of conversations about this is why this hill is so important.
Yeah, you are to lead, but it's not a unilateral decision, because we are limited, we are sinful, because we are not omniscient. That is why God has put male and female together to complement these qualities that we each have. That does not relieve the husband of the responsibility of making the final decision, but if he does so, the only time I got in trouble is when I did not listen to my wife on key big decisions. I mean, I can point to times in my life where I said, we're doing this, this is the direction I'm going, and I ignored the voice that called for caution or for reflection or to be more contemplative before I made the decision. And those are times when I go, that's why I have a wife.
Yeah.
That's why, because I have this stubborn streak in me, because I have this rebellious streak in me, because don't tell me what to do.
So the conversation that I have in mind is that very measured conversation where you and your wife, Tabby, you sit down together face to face, and from Scripture you say, God says this. This is what's expected of us. And this pushback that we're receiving, it's pushback that is contrary to God's will. And this is the time to make our stand. And here's my biblical reasoning for saying that. Would you be able to talk to me about biblically why you think this isn't the hill that there is a moment to die on? And as we've said, in a tiebreaker, in that measured, prayerful conversation, you need a tiebreaker, and it's the husband who's going to say, okay, I've heard you. I still believe this is the hill that I need to die on. Here I go. That, I think, is the best we can manage in a broken world. But absent that conversation, it's very willful. It's very stubborn. Like you said, it's hurtful to the wife to not have been
consulted, included,
and really talked with about the whole thing. And so ideally that dying on the hill is a decision you both make together, and you go and take that hill. Occasionally the husband may have to try to persuade and finally say, this is the hill, and I'm going to go take that hill.
I'm recalling one specific instance where and it was the justice side of me. I was going to take some action that I thought, this is an unjust situation. Nobody's addressing it. I'm going to have to address this situation. And the hardest conversation I had was with Tabby, because I had to tell her. And I said, she said, why are you doing this? I said, I really do not want to do this. And she said, don't tell me that. I know you too well. And it was that, smack in the face. I said, well, and then I explained to her, I said, I'm not doing this because of me, because I don't want to face at that time my unborn grandchildren someday and tell them I did nothing.
Yeah.
And that appealed to not just the justice side.
Now we're under rhetoric. Yeah.
That appealed to what? And I just realized this. That appealed to her mercy side and her understanding that this is not about me. It's not about us. It's about... Yeah. And then she said, okay.
Interesting.
And it was...
good.
And I just now realized, I was thinking justice. She's thinking perhaps the love of the future generation.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, I hope that clarifies what I'm saying. And we welcome emails, DMs, I guess, whatever it takes to ask us these questions. If you think I'm saying some crazy talk right now, please write in. Please tell us where we're going wrong. Again, I'm not repeating something I heard. This is, as far as I know, an idea that's been rattling around in my brain for a long time. This idea that masculinity is tied to knowing what hill you're going to die on, and not just blindly turning loose your aggression wherever you go.
And that's the thing. In our culture, this is crazy talk.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's...
The wisdom of the world is foolishness to God. Yes.
Yeah.
The whole...
And we're called to submit to God's word. There's a lot in here I don't like.
Yeah, that's hard.
Okay?
Yep.
But it's not up to me. I didn't write it. I'm just called to be submissive because there's someone who knows better for my good than I do.
And that's faith. That's faith because you know that on one level, but you're in the position of having to trust that God made you, He designed you for a purpose, He revealed that purpose to you, and you need to do that come heck or high water.
Yeah, it's not an intellectual assent. It is an emotional response.
Yeah.
We can talk about it academically.
Yeah.
But experientially, life is hard.
And Schaeffer has the best image of this. Francis Schaeffer, he says, imagine you're down climbing a cliff on a mountain you're unfamiliar with, and the fog rolls in, and you can't see what you're doing, and you think to yourself, I'm going to die on this cliff. And you hear a voice from out of the fog that says, I've been climbing that mountain for 40 years, man and boy, and I can guide you down one step at a time, but you have to listen to me and obey me and follow my instructions to a T. And Schaeffer says, once that person has demonstrated a true knowledge of the mountain, it's wise to put your faith in that person to guide you. And here we are in this position of not only is God familiar with the mountains, but He made the mountains, and He's the maker of you and me, and He is best able to guide us on this difficult thing.
Yeah.
This difficult cliff.
In relationships, two broken people come together.
You don't get one perfect person.
No.
Yeah. Yep. Well, this has been Radio Worldview, or perhaps in your opinion.
That's crazy talk.
And so feel free to write in and let us know where you disagree. That's the idea, is that we would have conversations and wrestle with these difficult things.